this Red Wing team. Gator, you know what? It's I think there are, we know about mathematical possibilities. You know about when you cross a line and you're actually eliminated from postseason. There's also, honestly, the organic. You find yourself slowly checking out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have reached that point where I find myself slowly checking out of the Red Wing season. And it's not like I'm not going to watch the games. It's just I'm sick of looking at the schedule and doing the math and scoreboard watch. I'm not sick of. I'm just finding that the improbability of them making the playoffs is overwhelming my thoughts. It's not happening. And I know that's happened for fans, and it's happened for some of you a long time ago. But it's one of those things that just organically happens, I think, where when you watch the games, you realize that the intensity isn't there because you've already started to organically give up.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between believing that this team is going to make the playoffs and then just hoping the team is going to make the playoffs. And then there's I don't believe they're going to make the playoffs. And that's kind of where I think people are right now. Mm-hmm. It sounds like that's where you're at. I mean, there's only 14 games left. There are 6 teams competing for one playoff spot that they're all jumbled within like 3 or 5 points of each other. It doesn't look good. And I come to the realization, I think, with this team that they have too many mid players, too many of them, and that the goaltending they have right now currently on this NHL roster is not good enough. The goalies, they're not what they once were. And it's not all on them. I mean, that's why I say the whole thing with mid. I mean, the defense is mid. The outside the top two, the bottom 2 lines are very mid to less than, and it's just kind of depressing. And then you couple all that with they played well, and they haven't won. They're not winning. They're playing well in games, but they're not winning. Washington is a third period thing. The 2 games against Washington, they played really well against Washington the first time a couple weeks ago, right? Mm-hmm. And then they got smoked, giving up the 4 goals in the third period. They played well against them last night. Really should have taken advantage of stuff, and they just couldn't get the puck in the net. I mean, DeBrincat was all over the place last night, but they didn't score other than the 1 goal. And the next thing you know, they give up 3 goals in the third period, and here we are again. The teams that they have left in the 14-game schedule, they're good hockey teams. It's not likely this Red Wing team makes the playoffs, and that's disappointing. I'm still going to watch, but right now I've switched from belief to just hope. That's all it is.
Yeah, and they're not. It's not a hopeless organization from a. There's talent in the pipeline. There's some good players on their way here. It appears there are some good players, good young players here, but ultimately, I mean, this group just isn't going to. I'm watching a game last night, and I'm going, what they need is Patrick Kane of 12 years ago. Yeah, that's what they need. They're just not.
Well, and he's played fine. He's one of the better players.
I know, but my point is they need him to be an elite player, an elite goal scorer. They need somebody to be. But as I'm watching the game last night, I'm again slowly on the organic checkout. It's like, it's so improbable now.
Yeah, to me, I go back to when people used to blame Stafford, and you're like, I'm not in the business of blaming the best player. I'm going to, the other players on the roster need to play better. That's kind of how I'm looking at this. I understand your point about Patrick Kane.
I'm not blaming Kane.
And I know you're not. Yeah. And I know you're not. It's to me, it's everybody else has to elevate their game. The guys in the 3rd and 4th line, you got to elevate your game. Hey, Berggren, you want to be in the lineup? Well, do something. Rasmussen, let's go. Kicking in gear here. But the reality is these guys are just mid.
Yeah.
And the defense pairings, you feel like there's something there with Seider, Sherratt, Edvinsson are all pretty good. And, at times Johansson looks good. At times Gustafsson looks good. But it's not consistent enough. So, again, it's half your defense, mid to less than. It's just not good enough. And yeah, they've got players in the pipeline. They've got a couple of outstanding goalies in the pipeline, but doesn't look like they're going to make the contribution next season. And yeah, Nate Danielson, okay, they drafted him a couple of years ago. He should be good. And they've drafted these other players, and it sounds like they're going to be good players. But by the time they're good players in the NHL, what is it, 3 years down the line? And at that point,
how many more playoffs can they miss? Rebuilds can take 10 years, Gator. First of all, there is that. Second of all, it's an amazing pattern we have of the GM before the team got good. The Tigers GM before the team got good was actually seems like he was pretty good at drafting.
Well, he had misses too.
Duh.
Well, yeah, but big misses.
But he has had, there have been some results from Avila draft picks. Ultimately, what sunk him was not the drafts. It was the veteran acquisitions.
Yeah, it was the
Troy Weaver. Actually, you could give him some props for his drafts. But what ultimately sunk him was his veteran acquisitions. And now Steve Yzerman. The drafts get praised. The organization, is clear. Is always ranking near the top in the organizational rankings in terms of, prospects. But the veteran acquisitions, the Tarasenko's, like the Mrazek. Mrazek was a example of a sports Hail Mary to me. I mean, that's a non-football Hail Mary. That's a move that's a Hail Mary. Let's hope that we get this goalie out of a terrible situation in Chicago and put a better team in front of him.
But I'm not even sure if he was the top piece in that trade.
Yeah, but he's the piece that they're bringing in to maybe be the goalie to catch fire. That's a Hail Mary.
I guess, but I guess I looked at it as they brought in Craig Smith, and what a revelation that's been.
The Mrazek goal, the first goal, by the way, they gave up last night. I don't know if I've ever seen a goalie more screened than that.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
There were 7 guys.
He's actually played well.
Well,
for the most part.
The go-ahead goal last night, the Dubois goal was bad. I mean, that's one he's got to stop. But, there's a it's a frustrating thing, and I found that last night the organic checkout started. Kenny, you know what I'm talking about? Where maybe you're not there yet, hockey guy Kenny. The organic checkout where you just stop paying attention. You're like not paying attention, but you start giving up.
I started to give up halfway through the game last night. I'm not full give up yet because I woke up this morning, the rational human being that I pretend to be, and I looked at the standings and I saw, all right, we're 3 points out of a playoff spot with plenty of games left. Rationally, you believe there is still a chance because of the numbers. And then you look at the schedule, like you mentioned, Gator, and you say now you're just more hoping.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm starting to get to the I'm more hoping phase of this.
Well, yeah, because now there's only 14 games left.
You have one against Utah. You have one against Vegas. You have a whole bunch of real tough games coming up. And you look at it, you can't possibly plant your flag and say this team will make the playoffs. The confidence is completely shot. There's no confidence anymore.
No, which is crazy to think that this team had 2 7-game win streaks. And it wasn't like forever ago. They changed the coach in December, and then they promptly went on a 7-game win streak and then had another 7-game win streak. Like, how far away is this team from that team?
And I hate to re-adjudicate it, and I'm going to do it once, and I'm going to leave it there. But if Lalone would have been fired during the offseason, like a lot of people, like myself, were calling for, I feel like this team is in the middle of the Atlantic race.
It seems like they'd be at least where Ottawa is right now.
At least, minimum where Ottawa is.